Zuma.
Gosh, there are so many little islands and countries out there.
So beautiful. Like they're meant to be seen.
Yeah.
But But there's a sacrifice. We haven't bought new furniture in a really long time.
Oh, really?
No, we have no furniture money. We have no furniture money. Yeah. There's a lot of things that some people like. You just have to pick your premium, right?
Yeah.
Like, where are you going to spend your money?
Well, yeah. I mean, okay, you can have furniture, and I guess functionally you need a bed to lie in and all that kind of stuff. But like, sometimes I even look at like artwork. I'm like, okay, you can spend all this money and we look at something.
Yeah.
Or you can spend money and experience something.
Yeah. Which.
Okay.
Depending on the personality, but you probably can't do both at the same time.
No.
And that's why people are a little judgmental about finances sometimes, because they spend their money differently. Right. And so
that's true.
It's they're like, how do they do that? But
can we talk about one other thing that actually I have one update I want to follow up with you on, and then this is another kind of update.
Okay.
But when I was listening to you, it might have been shout out to the Alabama entrepreneur. I don't know if he still does this podcast.
Oh yeah. He's not really reporting
one.
Much anymore.
You were talking about how you were breaking the story of the zoo. And I didn't know that, but I interviewed Ethan.
Okay.
Episode 27, where we talk about the zoo and that kind of stuff. So are you still involved at all with them on when, the latest happenings?
I am not.
Okay.
They did ask me what level of involvement I wanted to have. And I didn't have much interest in moving forward as far as my personal investment, only because while we would be frequent attenders to the zoo, it's not something that I feel like I'm overly passionate about or that I can really speak to.
Yeah.
Also, I feel like there's so many things you can volunteer with that you really have to pick and choose.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And unfortunately, not much. I guess the land fell through and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So they're still kind of working through that.
Yeah.
But so I was just curious.
Yeah.
I was like perked up when I hear like a little bit more of the history when you go further back on who knew what when and what was being publicized.
Let me tell you something so crazy about that story.
Sure.
So when I did that story, we met in this podunk land, and I'm not sure he really knew why I was there, but then he was really impressed afterwards. He was like, kind of a Tom Brown's thing, like, oh, this girl actually cares. Oh, she's not a dummy. Like, she's asking me hard questions, right? And then I wrote this story. And at the time, I knew that they had not shared any of it with anyone. So it was almost a little aggravating that there were a lot of online publications that were literally just copying and pasting my article and like having this viral content with no acknowledgement to all things Madison. Not that I need everyone to be like, oh, look at her. But also I have just spent 20 hours getting this interview, going out there, walking the property for 2 hours, working on, and then you just, so that's always a little, but it's a risk you take with online publication. But I was not at the time allowed to share where the location was.
Yeah.
So people were able to take my pictures from the article and do this back tracing. And they knew exactly where the picture was taken from. I thought that was so impressive. I was like, oh, good for y'all. I mean, great. I love that people were that invested in my article.
That's actually how they also, not exactly that, but similarly, they found a bunch of the secret CIA sites we have, like in the Afghanistani mountains, because the soldiers were running with their Fitbits on and their, their GPS watches. Oh, and then that stuff gets uploaded. And so then you come across it and you see all these workouts, right? These loops that they're running. And that's the only data that's really emanating from
I can see it.
Yeah. And like, whoops, just things you don't think about.
You don't think about.
Like, oh, I mean, I'm going to run. Like, don't do that. Don't take your watch.
Just a Fitbit, right.
Or don't have your watch at all.
Interesting.
Okay. So I'm always interested in how and luckily this wasn't a tragedy.
Yeah.
But Little Hadley, right? You wrote about this.
Yeah.
But it's the kind of what happened after.
Yeah.
The response to it. So you guys are visiting Jamie's parents in Austin. And I guess it was Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
And she just falls into the pool.
She took her puddle jumper off.
Right.
Yep.
And
or we took it off her. We took it off. Yeah.
That's and actually, I guess there was a death by drowning over in Montesano.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a little girl.
Recently?
Yeah. And actually, Ethan knows that family. Probably 2 or 3 years old.
Yeah.
And it was probably in the last. It might have been. Actually, I guess it was towards the fall of last year.
Okay.
Yeah, towards the end of summer. Gosh, time flies.
Yeah.
Time really flies by.
Yeah.
But so we all have that fear as parents when our little ones and who's watching her.
Yeah.
So can you just really quickly walk back through that day?
Yeah.
And kind of what happened, and then, but the most importantly is what's happened since, and then the program that you certainly, I think, became champions of.
Oh yeah.
And helping little infants to
swim.
It's even young as 6 months old. Can you walk through that?
Yeah, I can talk about it now 7 years later without crying, which is impressive. Because I definitely have PTSD from it, but I will share it with anyone that will listen because it's so important, right? And that's how you use bad things not in vain. So yeah, long story short, we're in the pool. We take a puddle jumper off. We're all going inside to barbecue. We were driving home the next day to Kansas, and we were in the pool talking about investments because we were getting out of the military in less than 2 years. So we were picking my in-laws' brain about finances and all these things. And my father-in-law was out of the pool holding our 4-month-old Sadie, and the three of us were in the pool, my mother-in-law, me, and my husband, and they had like a hot tub area that was raised that like float, like one of those really bougie pools, like flows into the pool. And we had taken her puddle jumper off so she could eat a cookie. Well, at 2.5 years old, she doesn't understand that if I go in the water, it's only because my puddle jumper, because we were letting her go in the water and she can swim by herself. And so she went up on that thing, and because we were lower, we couldn't see the raised hot tub, and my father-in-law was facing us. So all of a sudden, I don't even remember who saw her, but it was bad. I mean, I thought she had passed because she was unresponsive to CPR. So I think that's the feeling that is like leads to weird trauma, because you're like, oh, that's a part of your brain that like, I didn't know pain like that exists, And thank God I only quote felt it for a minute. I can't even fathom now what that would feel like to realize that it is true. And then she coughed, so we realized that she was alive. Went to the hospital.
Jamie was administering CPR.
He was administering CPR, and I knew he was breaking her ribs, and it was so bad. And he didn't. The doctors. It was so. My husband did not cry until the doctors walked in and said, "You saved her life." And you did whatever you did flawlessly. And it was just like, I told him, I was like, you'll never be in trouble again. And he's like, yeah, how'd that go? And so anyway, yeah, so they did all the brain assessments for, 12 hours because they assumed, I mean, it doesn't take long for there to start being a level of brain damage. And, but I mean, we think she was just probably seconds away from having some type of brain damage, but we were released 24 hours later and then got involved. I shared my story on the blog because writing's my therapy.
Yeah.
And just it connected me with the right people, enrolled the girls in the infant swim rescue program here when we moved here. And my girls are really strong swimmers. Super strong swimmers. And I think what I learned from that situation is it's like a car accident. If you can see it coming, you slam on your brakes, you go around the car. But if you don't see it coming, there's really not a whole lot you can do. And unfortunately, it's just not uncommon.
Yeah.
And I think that's the sad, scary part. So we're just the really unfun friends that are always in the water with our 3-year-old. We don't really do the puddle jumper thing much.
Yeah.
Just gives them a false sense of security.
So fortunately, I guess for Hadley, she has no recollection.
She has no recollection, but she's very aware of it.
Yeah.
Only because it comes up in conversation all the time.
Does it?
Yeah. I mean, oh, for sure. It's just a huge part of who we are and how we parent. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, it changed our lives.
Now, did Jamie ever comment that in his training, like somewhat you hear things like babies are somewhat very like like tough, or
Yeah.
their bones haven't fully formed and their head
Right.
hasn't fully formed.
They
So
have
they're
bubble
actually
wrap around.
tougher than you think. You know,
Yeah.
they could sustain a fall. And like, did he
Yeah.
have some training to know that, okay, you're doing CPR and you're doing it on a young one? Like,
He didn't.
don't, okay.
No, he didn't. He just knew exactly where to press and what to do. And as soon as she coughed, he threw her to me so that he could receive the paramedics. And, you know,
Yeah.
it was wild.
And this is just a question of curiosity on how these things play out. But
Yeah.
was there any part of that trip where he was not supposed to go and not be there for that weekend?
No, because it was his parents. So it
Okay.
was unfortunately our first visit to their new home.
Mm,
So that was hard because it really put a damper on their home.
mm,
We did go back and visit one time about a year later, but that was not a good visit. It's just not any, I like when you have, and I say PTSD because I'm very serious. Like
Mhm.
there's just things when you experience certain traumas, anyone that has understands, like there's just, if I read a story about
Yeah.
a drowning, I'm okay. But my body is
Yeah.
not. Like I have a weird thing. And so I don't think I really would want to see that pool again.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's like my body knows.
I just think of, you hear stories like this, and there's typically, well, thank goodness somebody that was CPR trained was
Ugh,
there.
Yes.
It happens to be your
Praise
father.
the Lord. Yeah.
But a lot of times you'll hear someone say, well, you know, Jamie wasn't really supposed to be there, but circumstances were, and then he was there, and it ends
Yeah.
up like saving the kid's life, right?
Yeah, that's true.
But thank goodness, right? Like
Yeah.
even if I have been trained and maybe I've taken a class,
Yeah.
I'm still, and I have never had to administer it.
Yeah.
But if I know in that moment, I'll be like, well, I hope
Let's hope we're doing things
I
right.
hope I'm doing it right.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the best I can.
CPR, my mom had to administer CPR a month ago on her neighbor that had a
my.
heart attack on his front lawn.
Really?
I mean, and she's in the medical field. So like,
But it's your neighbor.
it was her neighbor.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're never going to know you need CPR.
Sure.
So I need to get recertified. I haven't been certified in 4 years.
Now your
And-
kids went into the program though.
Yeah.
What's that like?
It is it's like throw the baby in the pool. Like teach this baby to swim. People are like, but they're crying, but they don't like it. Your child needs to learn skills.
Mm-hmm.
They're not being traumatized. It is okay if they're uncomfortable. They're learning how to swim.
Yeah.
And when kids know how to swim and are strong swimmers, the pool is more fun
Yeah.
for everyone involved. So I just have never, people say, oh, I don't like that program. It makes them cry. And
they usually kind of like somehow they flip over in that process, or
they learn to get on their backs
okay.
from infancy. So they learn how to flip over, and because when you're a kid that doesn't know how to swim, you don't know that the goal is air. You just know that something's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I've allowed some people, I'm like, if you'll allow me 5 seconds, can I please show you something your child is doing? You take a 2-year-old and you let them go. And all they start doing is looking side to side, because the 2-year-old has no idea that I'm in pain and I have to get to air. They don't know that's the objective. So then they drown.
Right.
So if you can teach a child that when you feel that I can't breathe feeling, you need to get on your back. And then the goal is that they float and then they get back on their stomach and swim. And then they get back on their back, so that even if they're 100 feet from a boat, they can do that countless times.
Gotcha.
Until they get to a wall or to a boat. It's
That's awesome.
just phenomenal.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And do all the local pools
No, nobody offers it. It's terrible. If you want a good career that will pay you bank and that actually makes a difference in this world, go be an ISR instructor.
Well, and I've seen in strip malls, I've seen these businesses where it's just a pool,
right?
Where I think it's just for infants or really small kids to learn how to swim.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
like right next to Great Clips, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, our 3-year-old is in a program right now because our ISR instructor, they just bought a business, so she's not doing it anymore.
Gotcha.
So she's kind of just trying to do some refresher stuff at a normal swim place, but
yeah,
I'm a little tough on him. I'm like, can you just throw her in? I mean, can we just teach her to swim? I don't, come on. I'm not here for funsies. Like, I need that baby to jump in the pool.
Yeah, good for you.
So.